By the list? Because
These were writers who had gone to the conference to network, and they were just going through the catalog and like emailing everybody. So they sent me this thing saying, "I really loved what you said at the conference, and you know, I'd love to, you know, if you have a few minutes, you know, basically it was like, can you do me a favor and help me out?" And I just sort of wrote back and was like, yeah, wasn't there. You should be a little more careful. So, you know, be genuine when you're doing that stuff. And it's very obvious. I mean, obviously that was a big glaring one. But I've had that happens pretty often.
So before you use that technique, check the Twitter stream to make sure the writer was
actually there. Yeah, and you know, and
that's great, not meaning it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that stuff happens all the time, and yeah, it's fairly obvious. So, but you know, take time to read people's, you know, whatever it's their stories, their blogs, follow them on Twitter. Get to know writers that are doing stuff that you want to do, and then, you know, start relationships. When people reply to me on Twitter, I try to reply to everybody, and you know, like if you're into what Susan Orlean does, she's all over Twitter, and she loves her Twitter followers, and she will become your best friend, and you know, like, so there's you know, there are writers out there who really, you know, they get this, and they'll get to know you, and they'll help with.
Well, this is all. I mean, I've written a bit about social cognition and like monkeys and people, and how gossip is grooming, and you know, we look after each other, and you need alliances, and this is at every level of society. You need alliances, and so whether they're aware or not, established writers, you know, if should I be specific? No. Well, you know, what the hell? You know, I like Ed Young, but there's doubtless a part of me that is receptive to Ed Young, because I recognize he is an up-and-coming writer. This guy's going to go somewhere. So I hope I haven't really. Yeah. I mean, but this is how it's natural. It's the way the world works.
Right.
So
and then Ed Young recently helped Brian get his agent, and
so
you know, this is all.
People help each other, and it goes both ways. It's just you know.
Right. Yeah. And at every kind of point in time, you know, like right now I'm organizing this crazy, ridiculous book tour, right? My book's coming out, and a lot of what's helping me make my book work is all of my other writer friends and Twitter followers and people around the country who are saying, like, yeah, I'll organize an event for you, I'll post about your book, all this, all that. I mean, Cliff has been organizing things for me. I've got, you know, all sorts of people and places that are doing that, and, you know, that's that same concept, and Carl Zimmer and I were talking last night about this, and he sort of, his line about it was like, you know, writers have to stick together. There's a big shift going on right now, and, you know, in a lot of ways, we are positioned to help each other make sure that everything stays okay. And, you know, so enough with my writer karma talk.
Guys, when you're putting that pitch out and you found the right person to talk to and you've got your amazing paragraphs detailing the story, what do you put in the subject line?
Right.
Do you try and do a headline?
Well, hopefully it's nice to. It was great to meet you at blank. It was a really good one. Or referred by.
Right, exactly. If there's somebody's
whatever.
name in there that says so and so sent me, even if you and I have already talked, I mean, you know, in your case, of course, but if you and I have already talked or something, and it's like, you know, David Dobbs sent me, it's like delete. I mean, no, I mean, like, it obviously carries a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, because number one, David Dobbs, unless I find out you're lying, in which case you're happens. On what I call my blacklist, which you don't want to be on. Then, you know, David is vouching for you a little bit, you know, all that. I like it when it says pitch, and somehow you tell me without saying it in so many words that it's not a PR pitch, and for those of you who are PR folks, and I know that you work in, you know, doing that, that's good stuff too. But like, I get so many of those that I need to somehow differentiate it from a pitch that a PR person's sending.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but having someone's name in the subject heading is the best thing. And again, with the whole like, be honest about your networking. I've had many people send emails saying Rebecca Skloot sent me because they were, you know, like I don't know, on some email list or something where I had emailed, and editors check. So I've gotten emails from editors saying, you know, this person just sent me sort of a weird pitch, and she said that did you really tell this person to contact me? And I've never heard of this person, and that is not the person you want to be, because word gets out. Like, you know, you do that a couple times and you're gonna have a hard time getting assignments. So, you know,
it's worth noting though that it's still, you know, I got my first assignment at the New York Times. And the editor asked me later, like, how did this happen? You know, then it was the old-fashioned way. It was over the transom. Yeah. I sort of knew somebody, but I couldn't put anybody's name in it. And it you know, I don't know, the stars aligned. But it was a good pitch. I went back later and read it, and it was one of the better pitches. It was one page, and it was, you know, it was there. But it still happens. It's harder that way, you know. But don't despair,
Yeah.
because, but you know, that page better
Yeah.
sing it. Yeah.
I want to follow
So, yeah.
on this PR issue. How do you respond if, for those of us in PR, but who would also like to do freelance on topics that have nothing to do with our employer, who, you know, where we work, the researchers that we have lunch with, would also like to freelance outside of work? How do you disclose that to an editor, and how is the editor likely to respond?
I mean,
That this is also you have another day job
Yeah.
as a.
I'm so much a believer in, you know, transparency and sunlight and all that, that again, I would much rather find out all those things. I'd almost rather you include it as an you know, an appendix, an attachment to your email, like whatever you think would be relevant. And I may ding that assignment because I have a feeling about, like, it's, you know, it's very interesting because sometimes someone will say, well, it's not my institution, or it's not, you know, this company I did work for that I want to write about. Yeah, but it's the exact competitor of that institution. For whatever reason, that clicks in my head and it doesn't click in a lot of other people's heads, so I would urge you to think about that. But if someone is totally forthright and discloses everything, and that thing won't work, I'll do the thing I did with, yeah, that won't work for us because we just did that. I'll probably find something else for you. I hate, and I've paid kill fees because I would like to think I'm a good guy. I've paid 100% kill fees to people who have pitched me things when I've later found out that that the trip was paid for by someone or whatever. And like, they'll never write for me again, but I did the kill fee, the 100% kill fee, because I wanted to try and do right by people, because maybe I should have asked instead of just being passive about it. But the New York Times, and they just got into a little bit of trouble on this, but leaving that aside for a second, their sort of questionnaire for freelancers, I think, is a pretty good model. You can, you know, what you do with that information is going to be up to each editor. But looking at that questionnaire, which is publicly available, and seeing how would I answer each of these questions when it comes to
It's a
this.
conflict of interest
Yeah.
questionnaire. Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you 100% kill, you're going to get a lot of pitches.
But
So-
I'm gonna, now,
What's your
now,
email
I,
again?
now I can tweet about all of
That's
it.
right. So that question, I think we said that we were going to do sort of pitching workshops. So I'm totally open if people have pitches they want to actually practice. I think, you know, I do this at conferences often, all these pitch slams where you get like 60 seconds, stand up, pitch an idea, and then, you know, a response from the sort of team of editors, which is how magazines, how all publications work, TV, radio, whatever, is you get a room a lot like this with a few less people in it, where, you know, everyone sits around a room and then one of the editors will stand up and say, you know, or they'll say, I just got this story idea, and they'll, you know, in just, you know, 60-ish seconds, very quickly pitch it to the room, and the room will be like, or yeah, or let's try it this way or that way. And the ability to hone an idea, and, you know, if nobody wants to do it out loud, that's fine, but just the ability to be able to say, this is what my story is about, very quickly is
In
actually
60
really
seconds.
important.
And when you make that follow-up call,
Yeah. Oh,
have
yeah.
that oral paragraph loaded in your head.
Yeah.
Because a very likely prospect is, what was the story about? Could you
Absolutely.
tell me? Because they know they can do this now.
Right,
on
and
the
then
phone
if you
and be
go,
ready.
oh, so, okay, so there's this guy, and he,
Yeah.
okay, well, and then, you know, and then you're done,
You're done.
basically. You know, and for books, that's really hard. There's actually a book that's very helpful for people who are interested in doing book proposals, and I have a bunch of sample proposals. If people are interested, they can email me and I'll send some. But getting your pitch down to what we call the elevator pitch is very hard to do, and it often takes like years of trying to explain it. I still cannot explain my book in, you know, my book is maybe more complicated than a lot of the books, but you know, that was one of the hardest things in packaging my book, even for my editor. We spent so much time on the phone trying to figure out how do we explain this book. It is just so, there's just so many facets. There's science, there's family, and there's ethics, and there's this and there's that. So practicing with your friends, you know, what's your book about? Being able to say at least say enough in a minute so that you'll get people to listen to the next minute, and not going more than, you know, 2 or 3 minutes or something.
Can I give my
Yeah.
my spectrum, my quick spectrum of like pitches I sympathize but I hate, pitches I like may or may not sort of continue listening to, and pitches that will kind of win me almost no matter what the thing's actually about. So on the, please don't do this because it just doesn't work, and most editors I know would say the same. like, I want to write about
Yeah.
my